morning, sir.
Today we feel privileged and honored to have with us Professor Dr. Ashok Acharya, Director, Delhi School of Transnational Affairs. On behalf of Lovely Professional University, we welcome you, sir. Now I invite Dr. Kundesh to formally introduce our guest. Over to you, Dr. Kundesh.
First of all, it's our privilege to have Professor Dr. Ashok Acharya, a professor of political science and director, Delhi School of Transnational Affairs, IUD. Sir has completed the masters from Utkal University in 1987, and he pursued his MPhil from the University of Delhi in 1990. Then pursued the PhD from the University of Toronto in 2001. Now, sir has a vast experience of teaching and research of more than 20 years. Now, sir has also been honored with Harry Hart Prize visiting professor in Global Justice and South Asian Studies. Now, Birmingham, India Social Science Fellowship, University of Birmingham. Now, Canadian Commonwealth Scholarship, Monk Doctoral Fellow, and Diljit and Gulshan Juneja Award for South Asian Studies. And sir has published various articles and published various books also. And again, sir, it's our privilege to have you here in Lovely Professional University, sir.
So, with your permission, can you start the presentation, sir?
Shall I start? A very good morning to all the respected panelists and friends here today. My name is Apangjungba, and I'll be presenting my PhD final viva on the title Political Participation of Women in Nagaland, the Role of Customary Laws and Traditions. The agendas for today are introduction, review of literature, research gap, rationale and scope, research objectives and findings, and conclusion, limitations, and future scope of research. Introduction. When everyone can take part in political participation, it strengthens democracy, and it strengthens democratic institutions and ensures different viewpoints are represented. Therefore, equal political participation is also a fundamental to democracy. It is also essential for democratic institution, as it is essential to hold the leaders accountable through participation. As rightly said by Abraham Lincoln, government is of the people and by the people and for the people. The importance of political participation. As Aristotle talks about how broad participation is a catalyst for vitality and innovative dynamism, as well as safeguard against tyranny and a mechanism for harnessing collective wisdom. Warpa talks about the existence of an engaged population, which is crucial for maintaining a democratic responsiveness in a democracy. Schultzman also talks about how political participation as an activity, it aims at influencing government actions, either directly or by affecting who makes policies. Customary laws and gender in Nagaland. Various studies have also talked about how customary laws influence gender roles in the society, such is the same in the case of the Naga society. As Millet talks about how patriarchal structure limits women's progress, even Naga society being a patriarchal society, it too limits women's progress. Longbumer talks about how Naga women faces 12 subjugation, one in the form of a patriarchal society and the other in the form of a customary and traditional practices. Longchar emphasizes on the Topashik court system, where the Topashik court system is a custodian of the customary laws in Nagaland, where these are the legal customary custodian that works under the district administration. Diverse feminist ideologies and expanding opportunities. To ensure parity in political participation, there is a need to analyze the challenges and opportunities of women's political engagement through a gender-focused perspective, where feminism comprises of diverse perspectives like the liberal, Marxist, radical, socialist, black and postmodern, etc., where all the feminist ideologies share the goal of liberating women from oppression and subordinations. Whereas political solutions are therefore necessary to address personal issues affecting women. Coming to the literature review, it has been done thematically under five themes. Women and political participation of women in India, political participation of women in Northeast India, political participation of women in the state of Nagaland, and customary and traditional practices of the Nagas. Some of the key arguments from the literature review will be highlighted briefly in brief. The marginalization of women in political life is largely a product of societal construct and not that of a biological determinism. Foundational theories like Simon D. Beauvoir and Carol Batman critiques the exclusion of women from democratic participation and underscore how patriarchal norms shape political institutions. Ullman and Warpa also emphasizes on a participatory political culture, which is crucial for democratic stability, but such a culture must also actively include gender equality to be meaningful. Despite constitutional guarantees and gender-sensitive laws, a gap persists between formal equality and actual political empowerment. Advocates call for affirmative actions like gender quotas and the women reservation bills to increase female representation. However, barriers like psychological, socio-economic barriers and political barriers continue to inhibit women's engagement. Therefore, legal reform alone are not sufficient without parallel efforts to dismantle patriarchal norms and institutional biases. Women's participation in the local level, such as the Panchayati Raj institution, reflects both progress and limitations as well. Increased voter turnout and local engagement have improved visibility, but tokenism, limited decision-making power, and lack of sustained support hinder effective participation. In the northeast states of India, there is a presence of distinct political contexts where ethnic identity, insurgency, and localized governance intersect with gender. While women play an important role in social roles, their political participation remains restricted by customary norms and limited awareness. Studies from various states of the northeast part of India shows the resilience of women organization and their role in the society, but also their pervasive exclusion from formal politics due to traditional patriarchy and conflict-driven instability in the region. The customary law in Nagaland also it governs family, marriages, and governance structures, often revealing male-driven authorities. Though some customs are flexible, they are predominantly patriarchal, restricting women's participation in decision-making. Coming to the research gap, rationale, and scope. The research gaps of the study are: there is a limited inquiry into how traditional norms and customary laws impact women's role in politics. There is a lack of study on women's political participation within Nagaland's unique cultural context. The rationale of the study are: there is a necessity to address the issues of societal attitudes and patriarchal systems, inform tailored intervention for enhancing women's political participation, and to integrate the dynamics of cultural traditions and customary laws in the feminist political discourse. The scope of the study are to focus on various regions and tribes in Nagaland, to analyze the intersection of cultural norms and political participation, and to identify specific challenges and opportunities for women. The research question for the study are what role do women play in political participation in Nagaland? To what extent is the level of political awareness among women? What is the role of customary laws and traditional practices in determining the participation of women in politics in the state? What are the different factors affecting the performance of women in political participation within Nagaland? The objectives of the study are to examine the demographic profile of the voters in the state of Nagaland, to assess the level of political awareness among women and their role in political participation, and also to identify the factors that are affecting the performance of women in political participation in Nagaland, and lastly, to critically analyze the role of customary laws and traditional practices in determining the participation of women in politics. The area of the study is the state of Nagaland. The research methodology of the study. The methodology significantly contributes to enhancing the quality, enrichment, and formulation of scientific conclusions in any study. For the study, the researcher has chosen 4 districts based on the number of constituencies, 2 districts with the lowest number of constituencies, and 2 districts with the highest number of constituencies. The population of the study taken from the 4 districts is 4,19,714. The districts chosen were Chong, Mon, Longling, and Kefe districts. The sample size was also estimated using the Cochrane formula. From the 4 chosen districts, the total sample size was 402, and out of the 60 constituencies, 23 constituencies were covered in the studies, with 14 rural constituencies and 9 urban constituencies. The tools used for the study are questionnaires and interview schedules. The method and procedure for the study. The study uses a descriptive survey method with both primary and secondary data. Data analysis include simple percentages, ANOVA, regression, and graphical representation with qualitative data based on interview schedules which are thematically analyzed. This dual approach integrates quantitative and qualitative methodologies for a comprehensive understanding. The objective one of the study is to examine the demographic profile of the voters in the state of Nagaland. It is a common accepted fact that all citizens, regardless of gender, must participate in politics for democracy to succeed. Without the participation of all the citizens, democracy becomes meaningless, or it is not successful. Various international agreements also recognizes equal participation of rights for both men and women, where Article 21 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights ensures every individual has the inherent right to engage in the governance of their nation. Modern political history of the state of Nagaland. The modern phase of the Naga independence movement began in the year 1946 with the formation of the NNC, that is the Naga National Council, led by Angami Zapu Fizo. The NNC played a very crucial role in advocating for Naga sovereignty. During this struggle after India gained independence in 1947, the Naga inhabited area came under Indian sovereignty. This also led to the tensions and conflict as the NNC continued to push for an independent Naga nation. During this conflict, Nagaland became the 16th state of India on 1st December 1963, which was a significant step towards political recognition. And over the years, several peace accords has also been signed between the Indian government and Naga groups. The Shillong Accord of 1975 being one of them, and the most recent framework agreement of 2015. Today, the key political players in Nagaland includes the Nationalist Democratic Progressive Party, that is the NTPP, Naga People's Front, Indian National Congress, Bharatiya Janata Party, Janata Dal United, and the Nationalist Congress Party. The results in discussions. Voting is considered as one of the most basic and simplest form of participation, but it's also considered as one of the most important function of political participation. So in order to understand the voting behavior of the study population, a simple question was asked on whether they have voted in the last previous election, where the answer received was that 89.80% of the population had voted in the previous elections. This shows us that there is a huge voter turnout in electoral politics in the state of Nagaland. Coming to the motivation for casting of ballot, it is very important to understand what is the motivation behind why a person is coming out to vote. So in order to understand why is the reason for your voting, they were given some various options to reason what was the reason behind their voting. And very interestingly, we can see from the data that 40.96% of women voters voted for a party that their parents or spouse supported, on contrary to 14.36% of male voters. Other significant responses were party best. They voted for the party that is best for the people, and also the best candidate irrespective of a party or party with the best leader. This is a comprehensive voting data of the history to the Nagaland Legislative Assembly, where we have taken the data from the year 1969 to 2023. So here, if we look at the data, we find that out of the 13 general elections, in 9 general elections, the voter turnout of the female are more than those of the female voters. But as we go forward, we will see that female voters doesn't move forward beyond voting activity, and they are only concentrated and active only while voting. To further understand whether the voters were motivated or they took independent decision, a question was asked on whether they were motivated or not. And this data shows that 35.68% of the female voters were motivated by others in order to vote for a particular candidate or a party. On the other hand, 17.73% of the male voters were motivated by others. In order to understand the family dynamics in the Naga society, since it is a tribal community, the society is also closely knitted, and so in order to understand who takes the family political decision at a family level, a question was asked on who takes family political decision. Here we find that 44.53% of the male members in the family takes the political decision of the family, which is more than that of the collective decision, which is 41.79%. And 11.19% of the female members in a family takes political decision in their family. This data also shows us that the family political decisions are mostly male driven in the Naga community. Here this table compares age and voting participation, where age is categorized into 3 groups: 18 to 35, 36 to 60, and 60 and above. Here we see that among the male voters, there's not much of a significant difference in the voting behavior on all the 3 age group. But if we come to the female category, we see that the age group of 18 to 35 among the female is very less when it comes to coming out to vote in comparison with the other two age group. So this data shows us that the younger female voters are not coming out to vote, in contradiction to the popular belief that younger individuals or groups are more active when it comes to political participation. This table is a comparison of educational qualification and voting, where we will see an interesting pattern of how voting is not usually influenced by education. Here in the data, we see that as the education level increases, the percentage of the voters decreases in most of the categories except for the undergraduate among the male. So this shows that education is not the only driving factor that is affecting the voting pattern in the state of Nagaland. Coming to marital status and voting, it is many researchers have also talked about how married couples are more active when it comes to political participation. This has been proven true even in the case of Nagaland, with married couple coming up to 92.56%, with unmarried with only 79.86%, and divorced with 75%. The widowed population is also quite high when it comes to the voted population, but it is also important to note that this widowed population, the sample number was quite low. And when it comes to regional places of residence, that is urban and rural demarcation, we find that there is not much of a difference among both male and female in this category. Thus, the summary of this objective is that the female voter turnout consistently surpasses that of men. Male members often dictate family voting behavior. Loads of female voters are motivated by external influences. Higher education is associated with decreased voter participation. Married couples are more active voters than unmarried individuals, and there is a need for deeper exploration of socio-political structures and power dynamics. The objective 2 of the study is to assess the level of political awareness among women and their role in political participation. Interest in politics is essential for a citizen for engagement and participation in politics. Without interest in politics, an individual may not come forward or may not take active role in political participation. Gilligan and Deborah and now also talks about how better informed voters hold consistent and stable opinions where they are not swayed away by various propagandas or agendas, but they take well-informed opinions and decisions while participating. Harpan and Hitter also talks about how political knowledge includes factual insights stored in long-term memory, where political awareness shapes attitudes based on rational analysis and not on emotions. Political awareness is also crucial for active participation in a democratic process, because without awareness, an individual is prone to be motivated by other external factors. Nemi in June talks about how foundational understanding of political system is vital for electoral participation. Studies also show positive correlation between political awareness and electoral engagement. Therefore, awareness fosters informed choices in policies and candidate selections. The results in discussions. In this table tries to understand the awareness level, which is divided into 3 categories, that is the less aware category, moderately aware category, and highly aware category. If we look at the less aware category, almost 2/3 of the population is the female population. But coming to the other two categories, that is moderately aware, entirely aware, they are almost the same in these two categories. This shows that there is a concentration of less aware female population in the state. Coming to this table, it tries to understand political consciousness and educational qualification by gender. Here, in this data shows the awareness level in terms of educational qualification, where the educational qualification is divided into 4 groups. Here, the data shows that with an increase in education, there is also an increase in the level of awareness in most cases. Coming to this study of district-wise political awareness and age, here in the data we will find that the age group 18 to 35 has a uniformity, where we will find that in all the districts, the 18 to 35 age group are more aware, followed by the 36 to 60 age group, and then it is the 60 and above age group that has the least awareness in all the districts. So we find a uniformity in the awareness in all the 4 districts of the study. Coming to the gender-wise awareness, here also we will find a uniformity in the awareness, where in the less aware category in all the 4 districts, the number of female are higher than those of men. But coming to the moderately aware and the highly aware category, here we will find that the number of males are more than those of the females. So this data also proves that female are more concentrated in the less aware category, and male members are more aware, politically aware in the state. Here this data graph shows a comparison of political awareness index and political participation index, where the data interestingly shows that higher level of awareness does not necessarily convert to higher political participation, as we can see that in the district of Mokokchung, the awareness is the highest but has the lowest participation index, whereas in the case of Kifri district, it has the second lowest awareness index but has the highest participation index. This is a unique to the Naga society because of the various other influential factor in political participation that is also making a huge role in the political participation of its population. A one-way ANOVA test was also conducted in order to see if there was any significant difference in the awareness, where it was found that with a significant level of 0.005, there is a significant difference in the awareness among the 4 districts under study. Here also, in terms of political participation, there is a significance of 0.00, where there is a significant difference in political participation in the 4 districts under study. Coming to the political participation of women index, this result shows that there is no significant difference among the female participants with a significant level of 0.056, which shows that it is insignificant and that there is no differences in the participation of women in the 4 districts under study. Coming to the men participation index, we see that there is a difference in their participation with a significance of 0.001. Apart from voting activities, respondents were also asked on whether they are taking part in campaigning, attending electoral meetings, or being a member of a political party, or collecting funds for a candidate or a political party. In all these 4 graphs also we will see that there is a uniformity of men being more active in all the four activities as compared to women. Apart from the quantitative data, women were also asked on what are some of the significant role that they play in the Naga society, where in most of the cases the response were religious activities, where women are very active in church activities in the Naga society. But it is also important to note that even though women are active in the church activities, most of the decision maker in the church, that is pastor and the deacons, are mostly male dominated. Women also take part in economic upliftment activities like being an entrepreneur, running small businesses, and also especially in the rural area, being a member of various self-help groups, etc. Women also takes part in social welfare activities, where they talk about how they take care or safeguard and they fight against anti-social elements in the society, and also women used to bring about peace between, or they act as a mediator between two conflicting parties, especially during the insurgent period in the state. They also are a symbol of cultural preservation, where they actively take part in various cultural activities as well. So the summary of this objective 2 is women's political participation is uniform across district, while men's participation varies significantly. There is a higher political awareness among men, with age 18 to 35 being the most aware category. There is also an inverse relation between awareness and participation rates across the districts. Objective 3 of the study is to identify the factors that are affecting the performance of women in political participation in Nagaland. As per Hassim, women's political engagement is crucial for a democratic governance, because women represents almost half of the population. But despite higher female voter turnout, meaningful political engagement remains a challenge, not only across the world, but it is also seen even in the state of Nagaland. Global female representation in politics is only 26.5%, with significant disparity across region, with Nordic countries being an exception with a representation of 45.7%. CEDAW and SDG Goal 5 also emphasizes on women's political participation and leadership. Laskin in prayer also talks about how interest in politics is crucial for active political involvement. Because without an interest in politics, people tend to not give importance and participate in political activities. Gender disparity in political interests are evident globally, offering women's electoral involvement, where socialization processes and situational factors contribute to gender disparity in political interest and engagement. Results and discussions. Here, this graph tries to understand the level of interest in politics between the two genders, where the interest is categorized into 3 categories: interested, to some extent, and not interested. If we look at this graph, we will find that if we move from not interested to the interest category, we will see that the graph of the male, that is blue, highlighted in blue, is going up. But on the other hand, the graph of the female is going down as it moves towards interest in politics. This shows that there is a huge disparity in the interest in politics among the two genders in the study. This graph shows educational qualification with interest in politics. From this graph, we can understand that there is an influence of education in interest in politics, but not to a very great extent in the state. coming to this table, it is a binary logistic regression done in order to identify the factors that are affecting women in casting of vote. Here in this data with age with a significance of 0.009 and occupation with a significance of 0.006, we will see that these two factors are influencing women when it comes to voting. When it comes to women and their interest in contesting of election, we will find that a factor, that is being a member of the village council or town council. Here in this data, it is showing a significance of 0.018. So this shows that women are affected by not being included in the village and town councils. Women are not included at the leadership level, in the local level. This is the reason, one of the factors behind why women are not coming forward to contest election. This logistic regression talks and tries to find the various factors that are affecting the participation of women in politics. Here it shows that age with a significance of 0.021 is significant. Awareness is also a significant factor with 0.004, and the other significant factor is how the local decision-making body is affecting the electoral politics with a significance of 0.033%. This shows that the influence of local decision-making bodies in the electoral politics is hampering the political participation of women in the state. Apart from this quantitative data, women were also asked on various challenges that they are facing in the society when it comes to taking part in politics. And some of this prominent highlights that the women respondents came forward with was customary laws and traditions that is being followed. There is gender stereotyping in the society as well, where women are considered to be homemakers. One interesting factor is that most of the women also highlighted that women does not support each other, and that they do not provide opportunity to each other. So they are saying that it is not only men that is not supporting them, but women among themselves are not supporting each other as well. There is also an inferiority complex among women. Why? Because as per the customs and traditions, they have never been allowed into the local leadership role. So they themselves feels that they are not capable enough to come forward as leaders. They also highlighted the presence of patriarchal mindsets and cultural barriers, and also they highlighted the limited representations of women in politics in the state assembly as well as at the local level. Not only that, they also highlighted how in party organizations women are sidelines and are not given a central role, but women are given a separate role. The objective 4 of the study is to critically analyze the role of customary laws and traditional practices in determining the participation of women in politics. The mark says that customary law is orally transmitted and is deeply rooted in ethnic communities. It governs properties, family relations, and land rights, particularly among the tribes, and supersedes civil and common laws and specific domains. Nagaland, with a population of 86.48% of tribal population, it enjoys a special status under Article 371A, where Naga customary laws and procedures prevail unless overridden by the Legislative Assembly, that is the Nagaland Legislative Assembly. In the Naga society, the traditional laws govern the Naga tribes at the local level, varying among tribes and villages. These laws are not codified. These customary laws are not codified, and so, in order for uniform application, it requires legislative methods and customary court, which we have discussed about earlier. That is the Tupashi court at the district and the subdivisional level, headed by the district commissioner, and then at the village level, it is the village customary court under the traditional system. The Naga customary law, it covers land ownership, marriages, settlement, inheritance, as well as dispute resolutions as well. So decision-making power has traditionally rested with men with structures differing among tribes, but one common thing that is seen is that even though the practices might differ from tribe to tribe or from village to village, man has always held the power in the Naga traditional system. A Naga society is a patriarchal, patrilineal, and patrilocal setup where family names and land are inherited through the sons. Customary laws, despite granting personal freedoms, are patriarchal and are linked to identity, limiting women's role. Women play a pivotal role in family and some community affairs, but are generally distant from decision making, especially at the local level, at the village level. The rise of the Naga nationalist movement also as a contributing factor that led to a distinct social identity within a patriarchal discourse because of the conflict where men took the forefront and therefore they were considered as the leaders during those times. So this also led to a construct of a culture in the society. The contemporary policies are also shaped by historical legacies, social structures, neighboring political cultures, and social media. This tablecraft try to understand how whether customary law is hindering women's participation in decision making. Here, the first question was asked on whether customary law hinders women's participation in decision making. Here, the male respondent says that more than half of the male respondents says that at least to some extent it does affect women's or hinders women's participation, whereas the female respondents responded that around 82% of the female respondents responded that at least to some extent customary law hinders women's participation in decision making. And moving on, they were asked on whether customary law promotes gender equality, where 61.65% of men says that it do promote gender equality, but if we go to the female responses, it is almost the exact opposite, where 62.76 of the female says that customary law does not promote gender equality. So here also we find a different understanding of or point of view between the male respondents and the female respondents when it comes to promotion of gender equality through customary law. Then they were further asked on whether customary laws should be flexible enough to change, where 64.08 of men says that it should, and 75% of women says that it should. But interestingly here also, 20.41% of women responded that it should not be flexible to change, which is more than that of the male respondents, that is 14.08%. So here also it shows that it is not only the perception among the men, but also the female also perceives that the customary law should remain constant and it should not change. Naga women in politics. Until the 14th Assembly election, Nagaland had no female members in the state legislative legislature, where in the year 2023, in the nearing of its 60th statehood anniversary, 2 women were elected to the State Legislative Assembly for the very first time. This highlights gender inequality and the lack of equal representation of women in Naga politics. The traditional male-dominated village council also play a pivotal role in the leadership election process, which we will understand as we move forward. The voting pattern in Nagaland is very unique, where it is influenced by collective decision-making, like the decisions are made within the household, where usually in some cases the head of the family casts the vote for the entire family. The clan also comes together and decide whom to vote for, or which party or which candidate to support. And also there is an existence of a term called village candidate, where the villagers come together and decide on their political leader or party. Therefore, the politicians in Nagaland also usually favors individuals from their own social groups, that is from their own clan, from their own village or tribe, where distributions of jobs and resources are also given. With Nagaland, with a rural population of 71.14%, and the influence of the village councils in all the in this population, it is justified that the village council plays a very important role in the Naga political culture. Here also we find that women are excluded from the village councils due to customs and tradition defining men as natural leaders. So women are we can say that almost 70% of the women are not given the decision-making opportunities. One interesting finding was that satisfaction with their local MLA was also linked to their clan, village, or tribal affiliation, despite the lack of essential infrastructures. Like in various rural areas, the respondents would respond that they are satisfied with the work of their local MLAs, even though they don't have basic necessities. Why? Because it is in Naga society, to have an MLA from your own village or from your own tribe is considered something to be felt proud of. So that is one of the reasons why I feel that the respondents say that they are satisfied with their local MLAs, even though no infrastructure developments were seen in their areas. Coming to electoral decision making in women, a question was asked on whether women were allowed to take part in decision making in the community during elections, where usually in Nagaland the community comes together and have a public meeting during elections. Here, 64.08% of men says that they are allowed, but only 21.43% of women says that they are allowed to be in this decision making. And they were also asked whether they were given the same exact importance as men when it comes to discussions and decision making, where 46.6% of men says that women are also given equal opportunities during this kind of meetings and discussions, but only 27.6% of women says that they are given equal importance as men when it comes to giving opportunities and raising their opinions. The local governing bodies and women. The Nagaland Village Council Act of 1978 mandates village councils in all recognized villages, which is quite unique to the Naga society, where the council members are selected by villagers according to their customary practices and that is approved by the state government. So usually in this kind of situation, democratic elections are not held, but they are done through their customary practices. So this, in this kind of situation, usually the clan leaders nominates the council members to the seat. And also the presence of hereditary chiefs in some tribes, the Kaungburas in some areas, and the Angs, that is the kings, in some part of the Naga society. They also are automatically, they serve as an ex-officio member and they have voting right in this village council. So here also we will find that the hereditary chiefs, the Kaungbura, which literally translates as an old man, and also Ang, which is a king, they are all male. Upon interacting with the apex women tribal bodies of the four tribes, that is the Punyak tribe, the Ao tribe, the Sangdam, and the Pom tribe, most of them responded that these apex women tribal bodies, they focuses on women's welfare and protections of women's rights. They also responded that women are tasked with combating social evils, preserving cultural values, and mediating conflicts. In Nagaland political party structure, we find a societal hierarchy with women wings under male leadership, where usually women wings are used just to garner votes, but not elevated to a higher leadership role. Therefore, there is a gender-based marginalization and exclusion that is persisting in the local governing system in the Naga society. This graph tries to understand whether women should be allowed in the local decision-making bodies, where a question was asked on whether women should be allowed in the local decision-making bodies, where 62.14% of men says that they should be allowed, where on the other hand 88.78% of women says that they should be allowed in the local decision-making body. But when asked if there is a chance of women being allowed in the local decision-making bodies, 57.28 and 56.63% of men and women responded that there is no chance of women being allowed in the local decision-making bodies because of the presence of our customs and traditions, which they said that it cannot be changed or will be very difficult to change. This question was asked in order to understand if the local decision-making bodies have influence in electoral politics. And here we find that 78.16% of men and 88.37% of women says that there is an influence of local decision-making bodies in electoral politics. Coming to women inheritance, in a tribal society, land is not only a piece of property, but it is also considered as an identity to an individual. So in such a situation, I try to understand whether women have inheritance right, where 69.90% of men says that women had no inheritance right, and 66.84% of females says that women they had no inheritance right. When asked if women should also be given equal inheritance right as men, 61.17% of men responded that they should be given equal inheritance right, but still 39.83% responded that men responded that they should not be given equal inheritance right. On the other hand, 90.83% of women says that they should be given inheritance right, as it is equally their right to have inheritance. A question of mine was, so the higher voter turnout among the women in the state of Nagaland may not reflect a true outcome or true practice of a true democracy, but it could be linked to a existence of proxy voting practices in the state. There's focus voter slip, which I also encountered during my pilot study, where a lot of names were in the voters list who were already deceased or are no more in the area. And also there is the role of money, where buying of vote is very rampant in the state, and also intimidation by various groups. But a growing number of younger Naga women are also advocating for inclusion in traditional institutions and are fighting for their rights and are coming out and being vocal. Though customary laws preserve Naga traditions, culture and identity, fostering unity and social order, these laws are also essential for resolving disputes in a tribal society and also for protecting of community resources. While it supports community harmony, they are also often administered by men, such as conflict resolution between families, marriage resolutions, as well as dispute between villages on land issues, and all of these issues are all of these disputes are administered by men and looked after by men. So sometimes it limits true gender equality, and sometimes the decision can also be biased. Therefore, the claim of gender equality are questioned due to the lack of female involvement in the decision-making processes. The summary of these objectives are: the Naga politics remain male-dominated, with leadership and decision-making concentrated in male hands. Women face systematic barriers and exclusion due to patriarchal norms and discriminatory practices. To enhance women's political participation, a cultural transformation is needed, including challenging existing social structures and attitudes, providing resources, training, and support for women's political engagement, promoting a culture of respect, equality, and inclusivity, reforming customary laws to foster gender equality, which would benefit society by improving democracy, governance, peace, stability, and social justice, and a collaborative effort among all the stakeholders is essential for achieving meaningful and equal participation of women in political processes. Suggestions for policymakers. There should be educational initiative in order to bring about awareness and also gender equality in the society. There also should be organized community-based awareness programs, because why community-based awareness program is because especially in the rural area, women are not aware of their own rights and of their own rights as well. Gender-responsive policies and quotas should also be implemented in order to promote gender equality. Leadership training and mentorship programs should also be initiated, and there should be an enabling environment also in the society in order to garner the trust of the female members of the society. And also there is a need for a promotion of inclusive dialogues with the stakeholders, and also a legal reforms should be made in the customary law settings so that the laws are not gender discriminatory in sense. The limitations of the study are: the study was limited to only 4 districts in the state of Nagaland. The customary laws and traditional practices in Nagaland is not only varies from tribe to tribe, but also between villages under the umbrella of a tribe. Moreover, the absence of a written codified law may lead to variations in outcome in different areas of the state. Suggestions for further studies. Historical perspective. To investigate There is a need to investigate the historical evolution of customary laws and traditions in Nagaland and how they have influenced the political participation of women over time. Legal framework. There is a need to analyze existing legal framework in Nagaland or in any other states and assess their compatibility with promoting gender equality and women's political participation. This could involve examining both formal legal structures and customary laws. A comparative study can also be done where a comparative study can be conducted with other tribal societies in India, where special focus can also be done on the tribes in the northeastern state of India, where women in the area of women's empowerment and customary laws. These are some copyrights and paper publications during my PhD journey. And these are a list of conferences where I have presented papers and attended. Some of the workshops that I have attended. And these are some of the claims from the field survey. This is from Hong District, this is from Mon District, this is from Longling District, and this is from Kifri District. That will be all. Thank you for your patient listening.
Okay, very good presentation, Mr. Apang.
Thank you.
So now I request Professor Dr. Ashok Acharya ji. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Good job, Apangjungba.
Thank you, sir.
Pronouncing the word,
Yeah.
your name correctly?
Yeah, it's correct.
Okay. Under the very able supervision of Dr. N. Kishore Chand Singh, I've had the privilege of going through some PhD dissertations of LPU, lovely professor at university in the past, and this time I could not resist the temptation of accepting the invitation to come physically to the campus, and I'm so glad that I did. Though not very happy because the students are not around, but that's fine. So at least I get to meet some of you, and yeah, so it's overall I would say this is a very good thesis, and an excellent question has been posed to examine, so because I've seen many theses where people try to examine, in a very dumb way, I would say, why do participation rates go up and down for women or for any other social group for that matter. But in this particular case, you're not only trying to look at the difference in participation between males and females, but you're somewhere trying to explain that difference with the help of certain traditional institutions and practices such as the customary laws and all that. So on the one hand, you are trying to look at the promise of the participation and evaluating it on various counts, age, education, marital status and all that. And on the other hand, you are looking at the constraints that limit that same participation. So we have a good story, and the story is that, well, in order to bring about a certain kind of a gender equality, it is important that we shed some light on the traditional structures and institutions. Modern social science, especially informed by feminism, want us to change some of the traditional structures. Whereas all of us know that many of the traditional structures stay as they are and for as long as they can. And so there is a kind of a, we go back and forth between how much of change do we want and how much of things, traditional things, do you want to retain. So that is one of the reasons why we say, why not go for some reforms at least. And all communities everywhere in the world need reforms of their traditional practices. And, in the case of Nagaland, that's no exception. So that is something we really need to. However, the trouble is that as the rates of participation across the world is rising, we also have a rise of right-wing political parties coming to power everywhere, who want to retain the traditional structures.
Yes, it's true.
That's a big contradiction in the working of democracy in today's time. Right? Around the late 20th century or early 21st century, there was a real worry that because what Robert Putnam wrote in the America's Declining Social Capital, that because people do not go out to vote as much and there are no social capital in the societies, then because they don't do that, so this means that this is the beginning of the end of all big political parties. But actually that didn't happen. 21st century is witness to how political parties have jumped back into reckoning. And the conservative parties everywhere are becoming bigger and louder and more powerful and all that. So which is making us think about what is the nature of democracy in today's time. So I would say that you have used with moderation almost all that you could marshal by way of scholarly work that you could place your hands on. Use them in the best way. However, and this has nothing to do with your PhD dissertation. I think it's good enough and it will pass. We don't. But since I've come here all the way, I think my job will be incomplete if I don't push you a little further.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Especially in terms of what you publish, how you publish, and in terms of how do you look at your own academic journey from now on, and where do you think you are going. So I would like to pose some questions for you.
Okay.
I won't seek an answer from you immediately.
Okay.
Rather, I would let you think about, mull over those questions in the long term.
Okay.
Right? Because that's the best way. But if I have to ask you some questions from the thesis, okay, we might as well ask one or two questions from the thesis. But these are also meant to make you think. One, whenever we write a dissertation of this kind, when we use terms like participation, awareness, empowerment in decision making, so many of these terms, whenever we use them, I'm glad that you have used them very consistently across this dissertation. But we must always have a working definition right at the start. What do I mean by this? What do I mean by participation? What do I mean by political awareness? How am I going to measure it?
Yes.
Especially the political awareness part. You have done a very good quantitative analysis, but there is a qualitative component that you may have missed out on.
Okay.
Especially with regard to political awareness.
Okay.
Right? Because it cuts both ways. There is a quantitative aspect to it as to how you measure it. And the best of the minds, keep on laboring on how do we capture the essence of political awareness through the right mix of the quantitative and qualitative data and criteria that we then capture. At one level, at the subjective level, political awareness is also close to what we might call political knowledge. You have used it in one of your slides about the factual, knowing the data, the historical data. Isn't that what you wrote in one of your slides?
Yes,
right?
yes.
So awareness is close to knowledge, political knowledge.
Yes.
Political knowledge is again builds up a bigger story, and that is about political judgment. And these are all connected. This is one direction you could take it, and this is the long-term view.
Okay, sir.
What you might do later on. Awareness / knowledge / judgment. And it all begins with how we define. So coming back to my observation, so I'm not pushing much in that direction. But if you get in touch with me later on, I will give you my email ID, and then I can send you lots of stuff that's been written on these things.
Okay, sir.
And that I want you to reflect on a little deeply.
Okay, sir.
Not just use it for Nagaland, but also use it for the entire Northeast, or also use it here. Go and do a survey in Punjab, in Haryana, and all that. Compare it with Nagaland, and you will have excellent results coming out of it. Right? So there is you must step out of Nagaland now. Being a Naga doesn't mean that you are stuck with Nagaland for all your life. No, you must do. You must reflect on other societies as well, right, in other communities. That's one of the problems I have with my students who come from the Northeast. Why do you have to write another dissertation from Manipur? Also because I'm from Manipur. I said, that's a bad. I said, instead go and work on Rajasthan. Let others work on your area. And you, because we lose at times our critical distance. Maintaining a critical distance with the universe of your study is very important. You get my point? Because there is always an implicit bias about your own place. Oh, I know my place. And when I wrote a dissertation on India, when I was writing it in Canada, I thought I had that critical distance. I put on my critical lenses. And I said, no, this is not the India that I know. Let me look at it a little more critically from where I stand. And it was important that we do it. So anyway, coming back to this. So we need to have working definition of all this. Like what is political awareness? What is, let us say, even the kind of comparisons you're making. The quantitative study is good, but we also need a certain kind of an explanation and analysis that leap out of it. And then you say, okay, so, but here are these few things missing on the qualitative dimensions. And that is where we really can't put our fingers on, oh yes, I got the story about the political awareness right. No, we haven't. So there are gaps, even in this dissertation. Right? And it's important that we understand it and what those gaps might be. But anyway, so the working definition is something that you should have done, because then later on, towards the conclusion, there wouldn't have been so many confusions / ambivalences about your concluding remarks. So, and let me tell you, one of the ambivalence. If you wish, you can respond to this. I will stop for a while and you can respond to this, and then I'll come back quickly. But it's important that, what the longer discussion and the discussions we might have in future. That's more important. Because so, cutting the long story short, let me tell you. So we are at times caught in a vicious analytical explanation, vicious cycle of analytical explanation. So let's look at this dissertation, what you're trying to do. You say that because of these and these reasons, participation is very high and all that, but for the systemic factor of the customary laws. Are we then saying, which you aren't, probably a female in your place could have said that We discuss all of that. We say women are denied decision-making roles in the customary law institutions and all that. But you don't come down to the fact of claiming that they are all patriarchal. You stop short of saying that. Right? You don't say that. But on the other hand, what's happening is that you say that, but these are systemic issues, and so we need a real overhaul, and only then can there be gender equality. But on the other hand, we are also saying about how gender-sensitive policies by the government can somewhere bring in a difference. I need you to be clear whether there is a systemic understanding and analysis which the radical feminists will agree with, or you're talking about a certain kind of a pragmatic reforms of the here and now that we can do and pose now that will then minimize the gender inequality, but will not achieve gender equality. It will minimize the gender inequality. Which way you want to go? That's a question I pose for you. Are you looking at a total overhaul of the systemic problems, or do you think that piecemeal reforms can do for the time being with regard to the customary institutions and laws?
I would say that not an entire systemic reform,
Yes.
but some changes in the policies and all can also bring about a change in the Naga gender perspective. Why? Because it's that even though I highlighted this discriminatory customary laws and traditional practices, apart from that, if we compare the life of women with the other societies outside of Northeast, I would say Northeast, the other part of the Indian societies, women are also, in one sense, they are also treated better than the other women in the other society.
Compared to Meghalaya?
No, not apart from Northeast. I say apart from Northeast,
Okay.
from the other part of India, like there's when it comes to education or education is one important factor where women are also coming up forward, and now as I've recently read about the educational achievements.
But if that is the case, then why women belonging to the 18 to 35 category age do not vote less?
Because it is one of the reasons could be because of their lack of interest in politics,
Or have they migrated?
or there is an influence on them also by their families also. And coming to but this affects both the gender. The younger voters, usually in Nagaland, since almost all of the places are rural in nature, students go out from their villages to Dimapur and Kohima mostly, or outside of state like us, to get education. And in such a situation, usually we are not able to go back and cast our vote also.
Earlier they used to go to Shillong and Guwahati also.
Yeah.
I know this because I've taught for 2 years in Shillong, in Northeastern University. When I began my career, that is a long way back. Anyway, so yes, so if you say that, yes, we are not looking for a wholesale overhaul of the systemic thing, and we're not arguing like radical feminists might argue that we have to overthrow all the patriarchal structures, because it doesn't make sense in terms of what pragmatic politics allows us to understand through the whole thing. But if that is the case, and then you're looking at, but we certainly cannot have an explanation that the Naga society is much better than other states and other communities and all that. What in your view is the ideal situation that must prevail in Naga? That should be guiding your response, not whether we are doing better than others or not. Because that's not good for us. anywhere, for any people anywhere. Right? Anyway, so I will not get into that kind of an argument, but I will simply say that if that is the case, and you're looking at reforms, then we also need to then scale ourselves back, and use the right kind of understanding of what awareness means. Because here we are somewhere raising the stakes on what the ideal form of awareness implies, the ideal form of gender equality implies, and a pragmatist basis of what is possible. So then you will have to scale down on what political awareness means, on how the mix and match of traditional institutions and modern politics can go together, and how do we begin that thing. Because if you had said the other one, I would have agreed to it. But I would have then asked you, then why talk about women's participation? Why not talk just about customary laws? So this could be seen as it. But in any case, I think your work is a critique of both participation as well as the customary institutions, and both, going together. Anyway, I actually had framed a few questions. Have you been able to look at my questions so far? Have you been able to look at my report so far? No?
Yeah, I received the 2 reports, so I don't know which one was yours. It was a secret thing.
And so, my last question to you, and that is, what kind of reforms in the customary laws, according to you, are appropriate?
Okay, before I go into that, I would also like to highlight a recent occurrence of the implementation of the 33% reservation for women in the urban local body elections, which has been opposed in Nagaland from the year 2001, where the tribal apex bodies that is led by men, they have been opposing it from the time, which in 2017 also led to the loss of 2 lives during the protests, and the chief minister had to step down. But with all the stakeholders coming together and discussing, the government, along with all the tribal units, as well as they invited the women organizations, the Naga Mothers associations, which spearheaded for the fight for this 33% reservation for women. So, with inviting all of these organizations together, the government would come forward, and then now, for the first time, Nagaland have 33% reservation for women at the local level, at the municipalities and the town councils.
So do these, let us call them village councils for the moment. So can these village councils or the local level, if increased representation of women at those levels, will it mean that the customary laws can be changed?
Yes, since customary laws are oral and it has come forward orally only, so it can be changed in some areas of Nagaland. Among the Jagasang and the Semas, we see women being appointed as Kongburas. Usually those are all men, but women are also been seen as Kongburas in some rare cases. Even in a certain place in Peak district of Nagaland, dominated by the Jagisang tribes, there is a village where the council members are women. Women are also included in the council members. And also in the district of Mon, Nagaland had its first VDP secretary. VDP is the Village Development Board under the Rural Ministry, where all the funds of the rural development comes to the VDP secretary, and they handle along the funds together with the village council. So Nagaland had its first women VDP secretary in Mon district a few years back. So from those instances, we can also say that yes, customary laws can also be changed, but it won't be easy because people are deeply rooted in it.
So my last suggestion to you, because you use the, and so I will not ask you any questions anymore. I'm done. I'll just give a suggestion and something for you to think about. Apangjungba, I think, so there is a case that we can't overthrow the entire customary laws, institutions and all that. There is a case and I accept it. Because if you throw it all out, then the communities disappear. We actually are really throwing out the communities along with the laws, institutions and everything. But on the other hand, have you really thought, because you used the example of Nordic countries. In the Scandinavian countries, for instance, they don't follow the first past the post system, which is why the rate of women's participation, representation is much higher, around 45 to 50%. Whereas in all the first past the post systems, whether it is India, US or many of the FPTP systems, it is usually hovers lower than 10% globally. So on the one hand, there is a case to be made for either extending the reservation of women up to 33 or beyond that, or bring in a different electoral system, not just a first past the post system, which will take care of the fact that criminals don't get elected, more women get elected, and so on and so forth. These are, on the other hand, there's a second track that you can think of, and that is India is a vast country. There is so much of diversity. So even when we are looking at modern politics and modern institutions, is it advisable and wise to have one policy of democratic institutions all across the country? Or do we really need to think a little deeper as to how, while retaining our local institutions and all of that, how might we craft democracies in the interest of those communities that then get empowered in every sense of the way? Or else, you would be using a certain kind of lens borrowed from elsewhere about gender equality, trans inequality, to study your own community, which may be thinking along different lines on all these things, etc. So one question that you can think of is, how do we craft democracies, keeping in mind the particularities and the specificities that each of the community enjoys in different places. Another way to think about is to think about deliberative mechanisms coming in the democratic setup. But I'm trying to throw open such a huge canvas for you. I hope you don't get confused for the next 10 years or so, but you won't, because after the day is over, you say, oh God, yes, I'm done, I've got my PhD. But I hope we can have a very engaging discussion later on if you mull through some of these things that I just threw out.
Yes, sir, definitely.
PhD is just the beginning of the journey, but I will stop here. Thank you to both Dr. Apangjungba and to Dr. N. Kishore Chand Singh for the opportunity, and thanks to you for
So it is a learning experience for us, sir. As an hour, I request you to kindly enter the results.
Oh, well, I'm happy to Dr. Apangjungba.
Thank you so much, sir.
You are admitted to the PhD program.
Thank you so much, sir.
Exam